Tēnā koutou, nā mihi kia koutou, ko mātua kao Russell tuku ingoa, no Arowhenua, te umu Kaha te Waipounamu. Tēnā koutou. Winnemem Wintu. The journey began in 2010 when I was actually hitchhiking along the road, feeling sorry for myself, pohara, out of work, and bus load of Indians and some of our whānau pulled up, and they were looking for me to travel with them to share the mātauranga and the whakapapa of our people in Te Manahuna. That's Mackenzie country, where that Pākehā sheep stealer was hanging around way back in the 1800s. So I spent a week travelling with these people, getting to know them and understanding why they were there. And it was quite curious because they arrived saying that they have come to apologise to the salmon. And we, from our perspective at home, salmon were considered to be freshwater stoats, an invasion of our territory that was introduced to our waters. And so we dedicated our lives, generations of us, to poaching them, and we were very good at it. And then we suddenly find out that they're a taonga for another indigenous group of people around the world. So we as a hapu and whānau had to realign our thinking about what the salmon meant. And their name for salmon is the nua. And so we had to, what I would say in today's terms, we had to decolonise our thinking around a species that belonged to another indigenous relation of ours. So that's been a big deal for us because they, about 5 years after the first trip, they arrived out and we done DNA testing on them. And the results come through that they are the descendants of the salmon that come from their rivers in California. Yeah, so that's the next journey was how do we get them back there? And so we have been put through the ringer, through the American authorities and that of wanting a whole lot of testing and stuff done to before they'll allow them back in their waters. And hence my friend Mel was, she's part of that team now on board that she'll talk about that whole science stuff we go through and that. But the Winnemem Wintu themselves, I went over there in 2014 to what they call the fire and water healing ceremony. It goes 4 days, 4 nights. And it was very interesting when we talk about wairua and we talk about matakete stuff that, and we were over there and the night they actually done the main prayer dance. There's your ability to understand what matakete is very seriously challenged when you see a lot of things going on there that you suspect that they've doctored your kai that night and they've put something in your drink because you were seeing things that I spent 12 months trying to come to terms with, was it real or wasn't it real? And so the dance was called the Fire and Water Healing Ceremony that hadn't been done for 130 years. They didn't even know what it was. And so they went into ceremony for 3 days and then came out, the head man came out with the dance, with the prayers and done it. So that was an experience, a very challenging experience, and when I came home from that, it kind of strengthened my resolve that I needed to be carry on working with these people. Because in their whakapapa, the creator for them, when their creator created the birds, the fish, the plants and the human beings, the salmon asked the Winnemem Wintu to be the voice for them in going forward. So in their whakapapa, if the salmon die out as a species, the Winnemem Wintu die out as a species. So currently in this modern day, there used to be 14,000 Winnemem Wintu. There's currently 240 of them left. And I think the last count of salmon they had was a miserable 300. So we're not just trying to save a salmon, we're trying to save a tribe of people as well. So it's it's become more than just we're going to take some salmon over there. It's gotten down to quite serious stuff of helping a people stay a people. Through colonisation, we had it pretty rough, but right up until 1970, they were still selling permits to go hunting them. So these are people that have been shot, murdered, you name it. In their museum, they have little wee handcuffs that big for babies. They've got all the hunting permits with the prices for the woman, the man, and the children. So this is a group of people that are being devastated. They built the Shasta Dam on their main river that buried 85% of their whenua. So that's their villages, that's their urupās, their gardens, everything gone. And that happened in 1940. So we're not talking hundreds of years ago, we're talking just a few years ago. So one of the things that Mel and I have learnt with working with these folks is that their ability to be Winnemem Wintu doesn't exist because they don't know who they are. And the river people, they're the kaitiaki for the salmon, but they don't know how to do that. So in returning the nerve back to their waters, they're going to learn to be themselves again. So there's so many pressures on us to make this achievable that goes beyond just putting some salmon in the river. It's about giving their mana back. Geez, I didn't think I'd get this emotional about it. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. 15 years ago I was laughing about it. Now I don't laugh anymore because it's become that thing for me of returning the Nur as we're going to be returning the Māori and the life force back to not only their waterways but to the people themselves. So that's a real brief description of the mahi that we've been doing, well I've been doing for the last 15 years, and Mel's been on board the last 3 or 4 years, 2 years. And Mel and I didn't know each other briefly an hour and a half, and then we run into a hui up at Aotearoa, and she says, I see we're presenting tonight. I says, no, you are. She says, no, we're presenting tonight. And so everyone thought we'd been working together for years and years, but didn't even know it. It's the passion and the wairua that we both had for what we're doing just gelled, and we've been like that ever since. So the Winnemem Wintu is they're hard work because they've been so colonised and abused. They're quite hard to work with. They're female-led, so the chief is a female. The next one in line is female, so suck it up, guys. That's how it is with these ones. Yeah. They're amazingly resilient people, and yeah, we've still got a lot of work to do. So we're under huge demands from government law and that regulations of what we need to do to matriate the eggs back to America. Yeah, that's about me at the moment. I might hand over to my mate here so she can korero. Kia ora.
I'm going to stand up here because I can't read the slides from over there. Bit blind. Tēnā tātou. My name's Melanie. I'm Ngāti Rangitahi, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's especially a pleasure to be here talking with matua kao to you all. All right, so I just want to introduce to you a little bit about the Winnemem Wintu. Ko Boyan Poia te maunga, ko Winnemem Waywaket te awa, ko Winnemem Wintu te iwi, ko Kaleen Sis te rangatira, he kaitiaki hamana rātou. So they're the kaitiaki of the salmon, and they have a very special story which Carl's just talked to you about. So the problem that we had is basically that Nur or Chinook salmon in California are facing extinction. And I think we can definitely tie that to colonisation. I really wanted to talk strongly about that, about how the consequences of colonisation are about not having enough cold water, loss of habitat, scarce food, too much human interference in the life of these fish, and then, you know, the lack of sustainable fishing practices has led to them being close to extinction. So in California, there are 4 runs, and the winter run is endangered. They don't exist in the wild anymore, only from hatcheries. And the spring run are threatened, and especially after last year. I don't know if you remember, there were these fires called the park fires, and they were like millions of acres. And basically, the only way they could put those fires out was using oxygen retardants, and then those oxygen retardants get into the water and the fish can't breathe. So, ko mate. So a lot of the spring run died because right where their important habitats were where those fires were. And so in New Zealand, we have Chinook salmon that came over, and I think I tell the story a little bit later, so I'm not going to give it away just yet. All right, so Carl's already talked to you a little bit about the impacts of colonisation on the Winnemem Wintu. I just kind of wanted to put this up here because, you know, they had it pretty bad. So they got, people were killed, paid to kill them. Where they were was considered prime gold country, so they kind of got hunted down and their land got taken. And, you know, the children were taken away from them in terms of the environmental consequences, like their land was stolen, it was deforested, and their sacred waters have been taken away. So this massive big reservoir called the Shasta Reservoir, which Carl was talking about, covered 85% of the whenua, is now kind of where people go zooming around on their jet boats. Which is kind of sad. And all that water goes to LA to, I guess, make the gardens of the rich and famous green. So they stole the water, and they're still stealing it. And then they had government-controlled salmon hatcheries. And I guess what's interesting about that part of their story is that, you know, they kind of, in the history books, they talk about how the Winnemem Wintu were very cooperative with the government in order to start those hatcheries. But the truth was that they were getting hunted. And that was the only way that they could have peace for a little while and not be hunted, was to go and work in these hatcheries. And so the salmon were stolen and sent all over the world, and as it turns out, they were sent here. And the story's kind of funny. The chief Kelly says, she kind of says, well, back in the day, they just sent a whole lot of barrels of fish eggs over. They were fertilised with a block of ice. They stopped in Hawaii, and then they made their way to New Zealand, and somehow they're in our rivers now alive. And so, I mean, there's a korero, which I think you should tell them about the ice waterfall.
Yeah, they have what they call the salmon run. So I've been fortunate enough to do that on the McCloud River. So you got to jump up a 40-foot cliff into the river. And the first time I was there, I was 58 at the time. And I'm going, no, I ain't jumping off no cliff at that high. And then there was a Hawaiian wahine there, purakau. She was 60 at the time, and she strides up and jumps off there, and I go, oh, my mana's on the line now, I've got to get up and jump off. which I did, and I survived because they had 3 people down there to rescue me if something went wrong. And then we walked 2 miles up the mountain, and then you got the waterfall, and it's about 20 foot high, and so you got quite a long swim to get to it in glacial waters. And so I had 2 people that had swam either side of me to make sure that I got there. And it's really interesting when I got there and I poked my head through the water to the wall. All I was going to do was go out and hongi it and do a karakia, and it just grabbed me and just pulled me into it. Pulled me in straight up hongi. And it wasn't until I finished my karakia that it let me go. And then it just pushed me back out, and then you swim back, and then you walk another mile up the mountain, and then you go to where they lay their eggs. And it's an amazing journey to do. And then the next day, they took me up to the puna, the spring that feeds the McCloud or Shasta River. And there's 3 permanent seats, rocks, seats there. So we went up there, there's about 15 of us went up there, and Kayleen, the chief, and went up there. They done their prayers, and then they called me on, and I got asked to sit on a particular rock there, and all the men were going, no, he's not allowed on there, because I'm an outsider. Outsiders aren't allowed to sit on there. And the chief just says he has to sit on there, and it was a place for medicine men, healers, and as far as she was concerned, I had a role to play in healing their people, and that's why I was allowed to sit on there. And so the task that I was given from Winnemem, the Winnemem Wintu, the elders and that, was to be the firekeeper and kaitiaki for fire for them, so that their fires will never go out. So that's some of the special stuff that I've been privileged to do and learn from the Winnemem Wintu. I've been over there a couple of times now, and I was taken on a hikoi for 2 days up this mountain. There's 21 waterfalls on it, and they're all big, small, and every one of them had a process and a wahi taonga or wahi tapu site. And the couple that took me through there was sharing all their mātauranga on the kai, the plants, the birds, the fish, what was in the water. Probably the one of the best tourist things you could go and do. You know, just amazing to have that mātauranga shared with someone. So I've been privileged to be taken into the inner world of mātauranga wairua, and I went to another place. There's a big boulder on the ground that sticks out about the oval shape like that, and it's got all these grooves all around it, and it's where the bears go and sharpen their claws. The gouge is about that deep in the rocks, and around it for about 3 metres, circling it, it's about 1 metre deep, and there's this little round disc of abalone shell, and that's their money. So the more abalone you have, that is their wealth. And so these little discs, every year they go to ceremony, and the little discs are presented to the bears to keep them safe and to stay out of their village. Because I have had a visit when one wandered in the village, and I had my toko with me. I thought, it comes near me. And I thought, no, it ain't going to work. Yeah. So like I say, I'm privileged to have been showing a lot of their special stuff. And yeah, they're good people that they need our help. And so with Mel and I, we're trying to make that journey for the eggs to go back a hell of a lot better.
That wasn't the story I was asking for. Matua, I want the story about the ice waterfall and the prophecy, and that's why the fish ended up living here.
That one.
So he's not doing very good reading my mind today.
Yeah. So when the Winnemem came out here, they wanted to go up to Aoraki, our maunga, to the glacier there, because they knew that our tohoka, Hipa Tamaiharoa, in 1863 went up there and buried the wairua of the tuna into the waterfall there to protect it from colonisation and what the damage that they already seen happening on our waterways back in those days from colonisation. The same thing happened to the Winnemem Wintu over there, where they took the wairua of the Nur and they buried it into the glacier next to Mount Shasta for the same reason, because they seen the destruction that was happening through colonisation and the loss of their tuna. So they knew this. They didn't even know where New Zealand was when they decided to come out. They knew their salmon was somewhere in the world. When they found out, the chief says, well, where's New Zealand? And so 3 months later, they arrived out with this story. They also believe that Aoraki is a woman and is the wife of Shasta and their whakapapa. So they first came out, the first lot of salmon eggs came out here in 1889, and then a lot of them came out, the next lot came out in 1902, and we believe there were 2 of their elders on that waka, that boat, when it came out here in 1902. So that's the close whakapapa that we have with these people.
Kia ora. Kia ora. All right, let's get on with this presentation, shall we? So you know all about colonisation because we've experienced it ourselves, and these guys had it pretty bad. So they took their land, they took their water, they're still taking their land and their water, took their babies away and also their baby salmon. But their baby salmon came here, and Arowhenua have been looking after them for quite some time. All right, so I guess in the last maybe 10 or 15 years, NOAA, who do a lot of the conservation stuff around the fish in America, they have been really pushing for the Winnemem Waywakets to have salmon back there. And the main reason for that is that it is the best cold water habitat for salmon in all of California. And we know there's a beautiful natural spring there. That's what their korero is around their creation story. We know that there's lots of glaciers, and actually in the middle of summer when it's about 45 degrees up on that river, that water's still about 10 degrees. So it's cold. Give you an ice cream headache from jumping in. That's why Matua Carl didn't want to jump off the waterfall. And to be fair, I was at a ceremony like that and I said, Carl, I'm not jumping. Yeah. And so I put this photo in because on the 1st of May 2023, there was a ceremony that was done from the Winnemem Wintu, so that's Chief Kalinsisk in the middle, California Department of Fishing and Wildlife. The dude on the left is Chuck Bonham, who's the director, and then the woman on the right is Kathy Markin-Cavage from NOAA. They signed a co-partnership agreement to return the salmon to the Winnemem Waywaket. And me and Kyle get to be a part of that. All right, sorry, so we'll get on with it. Somebody was asking me before what rematriation means. I guess it's a word that we've reclaimed because colonisation is often thought about as patriarchy. So we're like, F the patriarchy, let's go with rematriation. And really, rematriation aims to restore balance, support Indigenous decision making, promote healing through reclaiming Indigenous knowledge, and revitalise cultural practices. So there's lots of different cultural practices, but I guess some of the main ones are around ceremonial fires and this idea that fires are a really, really important part of their culture. So you go to the fire and you pray at the fire. In this photo is a ceremony that we're having in an arbour. There's a ceremonial fire in the middle and the chief is basically saying prayers with all the scientists that work on the project. And so I guess a big part of the rematriation is about recognising again that sacred relationship between the nur, the salmon, that river, that special place where they've lived and now they don't, and then the Winnemem Wintu as a people, and how what Matua was telling you before, the survival of the Winnemem Wintu is dependent on the survival of nur, of salmon, and this is really important part of who they are. All right, so we got the Mellish Stream. It's in Arowhenua Rohe. I guess it's around 2 wharekai, or 2 wharekai. What's incredible is we know that the fish there have got the spring run Chinook genes. We know that they're mountain climbers because they have to climb to the same elevation as the Winnemem Waywaket, which is 2,300 feet. They're the most isolated hatchery from hatcheries, which means that they're as wild as we can get them. And you know, the chief, she talks a lot about these lindata nur, that they're these wild mountain climbers and that they need to be kind of wild and crazy in order to be able to get up to that river. And she's quite funny. She sort of has this metaphor that, you know, res Indians, which I guess are like us, raised on our papakainga, all wild and crazy, and that they are going to be able to survive, that those are the lindata nur compared to the city Indians is what she calls them. And so I don't know where you sit in that, but kia ora. It's her metaphor, not mine. Yeah, and I guess we can relate a little bit about how lost our cousins are when they come home. So, you know, we want to make sure that the salmon that get back there are strong and wild and able to get back. I will just leave it there. All right. So what do we have to do? In order to rematriate these nua, we have to make sure that they've got no pathogens. And so there's all these crazy laws, Title 15, California Department of Fishing and Wildlife, Title 50, blah, 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 the federal laws, which I've had to study, and quite frankly, it's been quite boring. But they have given us a list of 29 pathogens, and it changes. So we got an extra one this year, and we got one taken off, which are all kind of quite serious, because if we take the salmon home to California from New Zealand and they've got these pathogens, then they could kill off all the ones that already live there. And a lot of these pathogens are already in California, and so I guess we're kind of a bit annoyed about it. But, you know, at the moment we're trying to comply because we want to get these fish home, and we know that they're dying here in New Zealand, like our numbers are getting pretty low, so we're trying to get them home as soon as possible. Anyway, needless to say, I've spent a lot of time in rooms with officials fighting about the pathogens on this list. Okay, so this time last year, we were about to go into the river, and we had a lab in New Zealand that was going to test all our pathogens, and they said, oh, sorry, we can't do it anymore. And I was like, oh, crap, you know, like we spent all this time getting ready, and we don't have anywhere to send them. And so we were like, all right, well, can we send them to Australia? Carl, it was going to cost us $500,000 to test them in Australia, plus I think it was about $12,000 per shipment. And so we couldn't do that. And then we're like, oh no, we're going to have to go America. So we tried a lab at UC Davis, they couldn't do it. We finally settled on this lab called WADL, the Washington Animal Diseases Diagnostics Laboratory, which is in a tiny little place called Pullman. Anyway, long story short, there is no courier that could get it there in time, because we have to get them there within 72 hours, and they quoted us $20,000 a shipment. So that means that this year we are doing 18 shipments, and it would have cost us $400,000. So we decided, I decided, because I'm a little crazy sometimes, that we would hand deliver them, and we've been able to do that. And so, I mean, I guess this is just a crazy sort of thing about what we have to do 18 times this year. I did the first shipment in June 2024, and when I delivered those little samples, I had a bit of a tangi weto because it was a lot of work getting it there. And so we're just, actually our first day in the river is on Monday, so it should be good. And I guess Arowhenua have an incredible bunch of rangatahi interns that come with us. They're a really incredible bunch of young rangatahi who are helping us to do this project and doing really, really great things. All right. Okay, that's it. Oh, look, I've still got 2 minutes, Rawiri. Check me out. Okay, we thought we were going to go like for an hour or something like that. Anyway, so for the next 2 years, we have to go into the rivers and catch these fish and prove that they've got no pathogens in them. And then once we've done that, we're going to be allowed to rematriate the fish back to California. And when they get rematriated, we basically have to get the eggs, we have to fertilise them, we have to take them over in a plane. Me and Matua are going to go, and put them back into the river. I guess the parts that I haven't really told you a lot about, although Matua told you a little bit about them, is all the ceremonies that we do. So we have a ropu kaitiaki, which Matua Kāla's on, and a whole lot of other Arowhenua folks who guide us on the tikanga Māori that we have to do when we go to the rivers. And you know, I had a Indigenous academic friend who said to me, well, you better say some prayers, you've got to introduce the tupunas to each other, because, you know, if the tupunas from here want to fight with the tupunas from there, because the salmon aren't from here, ooh, a lot of stuff's going to go down. And well, she didn't quite say it like that, she said it a whole lot more fancy. And I kind of realised, oh, that was true. So obviously we go in and we do a karakia, and it's actually been a really beautiful process, because Kuruna, who is one of the ladies on our ropu kaitiaki, has been teaching me how to kai karanga, so it's been a really awesome process for me. And then we sing and we say karakia and stuff. And then we do the Winnemem Wintu ceremonies. So we have to do a smudge, which is when you burn this kalamzik. It's a sunflower root, which is one of their cleansing sort of ceremonies. And then we say some of their karakia and sing some of their songs. And then at the end of the day, when we've finished killing all the fish and doing all the dissections, we finish off with a Winnemem Wintu karakia and waiata, and then we do our karakia whakamutunga Māori. So there's a lot of ceremony that we do in this project, and one of the things that's been interesting is everyone always sort of says to me, are you worried that these 18 shipments, that none of them are going to go through? And I always say, nah, what do you think our karakias are for? So I kind of feel really confident that, if the atua and the tūpuna want this project to go through, which so far they have, then, we're going to get it across the line. So just to summarise, world-round colonisation has had wide impacts on the environment, and this includes why Māori and ika. And mātauranga and tikanga are powerful tools which counteract that colonisation. And I guess in our project, we've been able to share kaitiakitanga, manaakitanga and whanaungatanga with our Winnemem Wintu relatives overseas, and it's been really powerful for us. I mean, we're like, that's just who we are, that's just what we do. We don't really intellectualise it or think about it, but it is actually really special that we get to share those things with them. And that because they're a salmon tribe and salmon are central to their culture, sharing that mātauranga and tikanga has been helping to rematriate the nur back to the Winnemem Waywaket. We're using some Western science and we're not afraid to blend the two. I think a lot about making sure that the integrity of both of those systems are upheld. And the only way to really do that is to work with experts in both kind of areas, so make sure that we are working with scientists who are awesome and mātauranga scientists who are awesome as well. And we believe that ultimately returning the nur will teach the Winnemem Wintu how to be themselves again. Kia ora.
Kia ora.